Thanks for tuning into the Loser Kid Pinball Podcast. We're on episode 114. I am Josh Roop. My co-captain has decided to fly off to another country. He will not be back for a couple weeks. But in the meantime, we have an exciting guest on today. But before I get to him, I want to remind you, Venom just released. It's looking amazing. The gameplay footage is fantastic. If you haven't checked that out, go on YouTube. But if you want that game, hit up Zach and Nicole Minnie at Flippin' Out. I just got my Foo Fighters on my birthday last Tuesday, literally 4 o'clock on my birthday, showed up. It was the best birthday present ever, and it's been a fantastic game. I am just loving this game. My family's loving this game. If you want that magic in your home, give Zach and Nicole Minnie a call, or you can do like I do. I go on Facebook and I hit them up through Messenger, and that way it's easier to get maybe a response and kind of keep a track of like, did I message him? Did I not? But anywho, enough of that. I have an absolute, I don't even know how to, there's no words to really describe how amazing this man is. His artwork is driven the whole art front in pinball, in my opinion. He's a 2-time Twippy winning champion, which means he has the most Twippies for artwork. And it's Year of the Yeti, the sequel. First, it was Avengers and Ninja Turtles, and now we have Venom and Foo Fighters. So if you'll please welcome Jeremy Packer, aka Zombie Yeti. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing well. Other than you bring up something interesting, which is, if you recall, the year of Turtles and Avengers, I did not win a Twippy.
That is really weird to me.
I split the vote. No, I split the vote for starting. So, whatever. And by the way,
to go. You were fighting yourself and someone else won.
Nothing against awards. It's all nice and good, but don't worry, guys. I don't lose sleep.
So what do you have? Yeah, we won't even talk about the competition on that one.
I don't even know. I don't have all my. I don't even have all my awards, and the ones that I do have, I think are like in like a storage area or something. Like I don't.
Well, sorry. If you beat Franchi again this year, you've got to. He tries to do the Twippy stomp, and he's got to do it again.
I think he's got like 4 games coming out yet, or something, or 10.
Something
I'm
like
not
that.
sure which. Yeah,
no, Galactic Tank Force just came out in March or something like that.
Yeah.
So, but enough about that though. But your artwork is everywhere this year. How you feeling about this?
I apologize. I actually. So, by the way, I don't make the schedule, and it just so happens that in this case, 2 games were scheduled back to back, where licensors had me as part of the ask and the contract, right? And like I remember when it all came about and they were talking about it, and I kept going like this isn't going to be fun. Like this isn't going to be conducive for me to try to do my best work. I was concerned for that, right? Like 'cause I'm always concerned about being able to do the best that I possibly can with the time that I have. But in the end, it was a similar situation with Turtles and Avengers, where the first game gets sort of a more attention, and then the second game is like the rush to the finish line. Now, in this case, it wasn't quite as bad as Turtles and Avengers,
okay,
because technically I had started doing sketching on Venom before it became a priority to do Foo Fighters,
okay.
and yeah, but actually there's so much more to it. But yes, but yeah, I apologize, because the last thing I want to do is make people get tired of me, and so I remember when they told me that these were going to be back to back, I said, well, could you guys just not blame me when the year's over and you look at the numbers? Like, just don't blame me. That goes both ways, by the way. So.
Well, and honestly, these packages are looking fantastic. And so let's talk Foo Fighters first, because when we both kind of discussed this, you said this was like a project 10 years in the making or something like that. So tell me more about that.
So like, I think the first, I mean, it's kind of true. So from my side of it, I first started doing work for the band, merch work in like 2011, I think
Okay.
2011, 2012. As a matter of fact, some of the things I did during that time, they still like it's sort of made its way to now. It's still being used. It's a lot of it is still sort of being iterated, and I can send you some of that stuff if you ever want to see it.
Yeah,
But anyway,
definitely.
and so that's a very impersonal situation. You're working with like a third party or whatever, but over time you get requests to do more and whatever, and it was actually like 2016 or 2017. Really bad with numbers, by the way. That's why I don't do anything with numbers. I can color pictures and draw things. But anyway, so what happened was they had asked me to start doing some gig posters, and that actually comes from in this case at the time it came from management, and so then it sort of parlays into something a little different. Anyway, tangentially at the same time in a parallel world, they were looking to do a pinball game, and so there were conversations being made, obviously out of my purview, and it just so happened at the same time, I'm doing Iron Maiden, I'm doing Primus, all these things, and so I think it was after Primus, Iron Maiden, and Deadpool that year that it got on my radar. And actually, management was like, "Hey, by the way, we're looking to do a game with Stern. We're getting things going, and we're making it so you're going to be the guy to do it." And I go, "Oh, that's cool. Like that's nice."
Yeah.
And then obviously Jody Dankberg's the guy who handles all that stuff at Stern, and so Jody gave me a heads up as well. And I go, "Okay, so they they weren't just telling me lies; they were telling me the truth. That's great." And from there, it's sort of, I remember having meetings like Zoom calls with with the management about the project early on, like probably as early as 2019.
Okay.
There was even another designer that was on it for a period of time. I think I can say that.
Okay.
And but it was sort of like a weird transition time, and so it kind of was like, well, let's anyway, we had Zoom calls. I remember the first Zoom call we had with Dave, and he went ahead and basically made fun of all of our environments that where we were, like our offices and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, that's real nice, sir. Actually, that's not true. I was very quiet. I tried to be on my best behavior, so I didn't look like a total nerd. But anyway, so it was a long time. So I had time to think about it for years, and I actually kind of worked a lot of my gig poster concepts around sort of these little vignetted ideas that I started to sort of pad out in my head of where this could go and what it could be. Not ever thinking it actually would end up being what could actually be in the game.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know who I was going to be working with. I didn't know where it was going to go. And it just so happens it was Jack and Tanyo.
Yeah.
And Jack and Tanyo, for some reason, listen to me and like me and respect me, and so they when I pitch ideas to them, they made them sound way better than what I thought they were, and so I sort of like laid on the table, my whole sort of backstory for some of the character of what became the Overlord. He didn't really have a name at that time. And just between all of us, sort of having these sort of Zoom powwows, it just started, avalanche. And I just come up with concepts and toss them to them and assume they were terrible, and they'd all be like, "No, this is great." And then it would get me all excited and give me confidence to go, "Well, I think I'm going to dig in a little further with this stupidity." And anyway, and then the band was totally on board. And I do recall, I will take credit for this. I think I was the first one to say this. And I just said, listen, guys, this is probably the closest we're ever going to get to being able to do an original theme.
Yeah.
It's not an original theme, but what they're allowing us to do here is the closest we're going to have. Probably as long as I'm in pinball. I don't, who knows? Maybe things will change, but I go, this is probably the one. So let's not drop the ball on it. And I was trying to be like, supportive and energetic and like be like, hey guys, this is great. But at the same time, it's also a lot of weight when you look at it that way.
Yeah.
So, but thankfully, working with Jack and working with Tanya was it was easy and breezy. I mean, those guys are great. Tanya and I had worked on Deadpool, and we bonded quite a bit on Deadpool, especially when it changed designers. We were kind of in the woods on our own for a while, and so we have a really good rapport in that regard. And Jack, I don't know if you know this or not, but Jack, he is tall.
Yeah. Which is funny
By the way.
because you're tall yourself.
No, but he makes me feel short, so I don't like him because of that. But don't tell him that.
We won't say a word.
Anyone who makes me feel like I make somebody else feel. No, he's extremely tall. But no, Jack. It was interesting with Jack because he was kind of. I don't think I'm telling tales out of school to say this, but Jack was really, he had done Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
And he had a lot of great ideas. And I think it was just sort of, he was learning the process on a cornerstone of, and sort of, the team coming together, everything. And I think that worked in his favor and to our favor because, like some things he would go like, well, what about this? That somebody else might go, I know we can't do that. And then in the process, he would kind of come to a compromise. He's a very efficient designer in that regard, which I relate to because to do what I do in the time frame, efficiency is very important. Like you got to use every second as best you can. So, but yeah, I don't know. Did I go too long on that one?
No, not at all.
So, me, I can't shut up. So
there's nothing wrong with that. People love it.
Okay.
Well, and the other question I had too, because if I understood correctly, you were brought in a lot earlier on the Foo Fighters process than most pinball machines. Was that because of the relationship and whatnot?
It definitely was, but I will say this: over the years, I had shoehorned myself in as early as possible on the projects I was attached to, because I wanted to be able to get, so when I dig into a project, like I promise you, until I completely get it, until it clicks, and until I have sort of my direction and sort of, what really sort of drives me and excites me, makes me feel like I'm, 13 years old again or whatever, which drives, the focus and ambition to not fail, by the way. So it's a good thing, but I want to start as early as possible. And by the way, I wouldn't charge a lot of times, even for some of those hours for things like that. Like I'd be like, listen, just in my spare time, just give me a heads up on where we're going. Let me kind of feel this out and make some decisions. I would come up with different concepts for my direction visually on what I think we could do. Godzilla is a great example. So Godzilla is probably the first one where I started. I think I started right after Avengers. And like, even though I wasn't set to start, I said, I want to start. I want to feel this one out. I want to decide where to go. I want to make sure I'm going the right direction. And so I was able to put a little bit more focus. I did a lot of sketches, and a lot of them, will never see the light of day. I didn't even show them to the team or whatever. I just, throw them away, whatever. I mean, well, obviously I still have them, but at the same time, it was one of those things where I was able to, by doing that, have a much better understanding of where I could go and where I couldn't go. So coming up with creative solutions for certain things, it made it a lot easier because I don't rush to the finish line. I probably they'd love it if I did, but I kind of feel like I'm doing a disservice if I don't sort of feel my way through something, which sounds pretentious and dumb, but it's not. I promise. I don't purport to be an important artist, by the way, but I'm a careful one. I try not to waste time. Now, I'm sure there's some people on Pinside who would say that I do. Anyway,
They don't count. They don't count.
no, they absolutely everyone counts. But from that experience on Godzilla, and just going, that worked out well, and then seeing the response to Godzilla, which was so positive, minus the watermelon crowd. Uh, sorry, I said, well, I've got to have another main character with green. What's my next project? And they said Foo Fighters. I said, no problem, I'll figure it out. Anyway, that's an Overlord joke, but no. So I wanted to start immediately as soon as I could after Godzilla, because number one, I knew that, and actually it was Venom that I started on after Godzilla.
Okay.
And I think I had done concept sketches for cabinets and back glasses, but we're talking like thumbnails. Like they weren't very refined. It was just sort of, well, here's an idea, here's a direction, or whatever.
Yeah.
And
Kind of, because don't you guys do that when you're doing concepts for pinball machines? Don't you start out small and kind of just paste it on there so that way it gives it a general direction?
Well, I don't. Well, yeah. So I just basically make I make the templates very small so that I stay loose, and I say I don't get too, because I can get caught up in like stupid details, and it's a terrible thing to do, and that's why thumbnails exist for artists, and the concept of it, kids. If you're artists out there and you don't like doing thumbnails, you're doing yourself a disservice. It took me many years to realize this, but color sketches also aren't bad. but yeah, I would come up with concepts. We didn't always blow them up and put them on boxes. That actually usually comes when we do like the sort of internal reviews with like the execs and stuff like that. Like that, there's times where we'll do that. And in the case of Foo Fighters, we definitely did that because Jack really wanted to sell this concept of what we were doing, and I think if you saw like sort of the general crowd reaction when it leaked that Foo Fighters was being made, everyone's like, band pen. And I think everybody, like even internally, a lot of people probably to some degree thought, oh, it's a band pen.
Yeah.
And we were like trying to say like, no, we're not making it a band pen. Like it's they're there, but it's not really a band pen. So to be able to communicate that, that was probably part of the reason why he did that.
Yeah.
And also he's got that radio voice. So when he does presentations, he sounds so confident.
Makes you feel all warm and fuzzy inside, like you can trust what he's doing.
Yeah, he makes me feel inadequate in my speaking voice. He's no Jerry Thompson though. But anyway, shout out to Jerry because he always has the most booming voice whenever he does a podcast. So yeah, I think I worked on Venom until almost Christmas of that year before, and then I started on. So like I think I maybe had worked on it 2 months or something like that, 3 months. I just started inking one of the back glasses. So it was weird. So like when I went to Foo Fighters and I went so deep into Foo Fighters, for 10, 11 months, whatever it was. When I came back to Venom and I looked at stuff that I had done, I'm like, what the hell? Like I had like a different, like I go, oh, okay, I like this, but what was I thinking over here and stuff like that. So like trying to make some adjustments on the fly and everything was it was weird for me. It was different, especially because it was a rushed timeline. But what I did to make it all sort of gel and make sense to me was I talked with Greg, and I'm like, one of the things that has the longest lead time for parts and everything else is obviously the playfield, right?
Yeah.
And so they had the playfield at that point. It was very much sort of tuned in. There was a lot, little things to be done, but it was pretty tuned in. And so I talked with Greg, and Greg's like, hey man, why don't you just jump into the playfield, figure out the playfield, and from there, like once you get back to those other pieces you had already started, you're gonna sort of have kind of your anchor or whatever. And so the first thing I did when I jumped into the playfield was I tried to think, how in the heck can I make sure this doesn't compete with Foo Fighters
Yeah.
visually? Now,
Yeah.
obviously, if I'm doing it, there's going to be, a little bit of connective tissue in that there's certain things that I like to see, I like to do, versus others. And obviously then the actual layout of the game, the shot paths, everything else, that dictates a lot of it. The game rules dictate a lot of it. But I did go out of my way to try to make sure that these two games would not look like they were coming from the same universe necessarily. And whether that was a success or not is up to other people. But I'm proud of what I got done, considering that I never had a weekend off for 2 years. So there's that.
Crazy. Well, and they
Yeah.
they do look great, and they do look great. You can definitely tell that you separated the two from each other. You've got a lot of greens and whatnot inside of Foo Fighters, and with Venom, it's a lot of blacks and dark purples and blues, complemented with reds and whatnot. And it looks really good. It looks they're very different from each other. I know that when you did Turtles and Avengers, the situation was you said that like Turtles, you originally started on that, and Marvel had requested that you do Avengers, and you're like, well, I'm kind of busy right now, and like if I'm available and you haven't found anyone, I'll do it. And then when you got down towards the end of Turtles, they're like, so how you doing? Was that kind of a similar situation with this, or was it more with Venom starting
No.
first? Like, how did that all work out?
Well, so in this case, it was different. So, but after Avengers, it was pretty much Marvel was just like, no, we got to work with him, type of
Okay.
thing, which is cool. It just is very flattering. It's very nice. It's job security, I guess. And speaking of, anyway, we'll get to that.
Yeah, we'll
But
get to that.
but so on that one, I think they had tried out a few artists even in that sort of time period where I was working to finish Turtles, and by the time I finished Turtles, they had basically rejected everything, and so it's like, okay, it's your turn. And at that point, I said, well, listen, if I do it, I'm like, like I'm gonna, this is a lot to get done. And by the way, I would argue in hindsight, and by the way, you should never, as an artist, you should never tell people what you think about your shortcomings. But I don't consider myself an artist because that would be pretentious. Like I said, no, I also don't consider myself very good at keeping my mouth shut. So I feel like had I done Avengers before Turtles, Avengers would have been a very different game visually.
Okay. Yeah.
Turtles would have ended up the same. So had those two flopped, I may have approached them differently. But because I really changed my approach on Turtles at that time, where I'm like, okay, I'm pushing to make, curvilinear forms, not a lot of hard edge, sort of rectangular shaping, things like that, because I was really trying to, whatever, it's stupid. It sounds pretentious, so now I got to shut up again. But that's one where I go, oh man, that might have looked different. In the case of Venom and Foo Fighters, the only thing that would have been different was my headspace. So I think when I got back to Venom, once I got done with the playfield, and I felt pretty good about it, it helped sort of, when I got back to those little tiny sketches and I had to flesh them out, and then ink and color and everything else, it made it a little bit easier at the end of the day,
Yeah.
I think.
Okay.
But
One thing I've noticed too recently is looking at Venom and at Foo Fighters, the animations are a lot more cohesive with the artwork that you're doing. And I bring that up because like I love the artwork of Turtles, but I feel like the animations are lacking. So have you had something to do with the animations to make it more cohesive, or is it just teams are working better together? Like how does that
I'm
translate, I
not
guess?
I'm not going to take credit for anything, because Chuck Ernst and his army of talent are really the saviors of it all. So like for instance on Turtles, I think people, like in hindsight I look at it and I go, okay, so people have a complaint where they go, it's a 2D animated cartoon and they decided to use 3D.
Yeah.
In hindsight, even though it's cell shaded or whatever, like in hindsight, I go, okay, I understand what people are saying, but people I don't think understand that the amount of work to be done and the time frame to be done at that time. It was the right decision, and especially because licensors do have say in what can and can't be done. So what you're really seeing on Foo Fighters, sure, my pitch and idea of doing this, cartoon, this, that, and the other, played into it, stuff like that. But at the end of the day, you know, Jack was the leader of this from the get go. Jack really wanted to lean into, more of a cartoony style, which lined up perfect for me. And then you have, Chuck Ernst actually seeking out, some very talented individuals that do just that. As a matter of fact, Phil Gullett, I believe he worked on like Animaniacs and like all these other
Awesome.
like top tier stuff. Like
Yeah.
between you and me, and I'm dead serious, I'll help facilitate this. I could not even begin to give you the laundry list of people who work on that stuff. And I'm actually going to try to here, see if I can at least find a little. I've said this before. I'm like, somebody needs to just give me a list, because I know all these people. I'm friends with them, but at the same time, I always forget people. But like, I think on that one, Paul was the lead. Oh no, that one was Zach. So Foo Fighters was Zach on lead. Oh, so terrible. Paul was on Venom as lead, and then you've got the Kizavat brothers, who always do amazing work, storyboarding, animation, stuff like that. So the time frames and the budgets, on top of the creatives involved, are why you get what you get. And so I think what happened was, Turtles was still early in the LCD world,
Yeah.
in my opinion. Like it
Yeah.
was still, that team of people were, like, oh, what can we do? What can we, what will the licensor let us do? And I think what you're seeing now on these last two games are really, again, it's a testament to that department, Chuck's department, those guys, the talent there. And I want to facilitate this. You need to get all of these guys on a podcast. Like you literally, like maybe just the leads as a starting point, but all of the artists that they work with are amazing. And I'll do like character sort of turns for them from the get go. So they sort of have, a little bit of a style guide to go with, but then I always defer to them. I always say, you guys do what you do. Like, I've got my stuff to worry about. You worry about your stuff. If they need stuff from me, I do it immediately and get it over to them so that they've got some reference for something or whatever. But the creativity, especially in Foo Fighters, that's that team. I don't want to take any credit for that.
Gotcha. Well,
I came up with ideas, but they came up with better ideas of how to animate, like what to do with it, and a lot of that too. Some of that came from Tanyo and his writing partner as well. So it really, I mean, it really is. People don't understand how much of it is a collaboration on these projects, and the game designer always is like, oh, the game designer. And listen, they're sort of the director of it. Don't get me wrong; they should be. But like for me, I'm like considered like lead artist. I'm like lead artist of what? I mean, the LCD work has a lead artist as well.
Yeah.
So for me, I look at it like there's a whole segment of people that are just not well represented and getting the recognition they need. So
Well, I
that's
agree
what I'm
with you.
saying.
We should get
You
on.
need to do
Yeah,
that.
let's do it.
Yeah,
I'll have to.
I'll make it happen.
Sounds good to me. That's
Yeah.
great. And these games are looking great too. Like Foo Fighters. So you had a lot of freedom in this. Where did this freedom come from?
Trust is the best place to get it. Every project I've ever worked on, like I said before, even before I'm on the project, I'll do sketches, I'll do concepts to get buy-in and to get confidence from the licensor, from early on from Stern. But and so once you have that confidence, in the case of Foo Fighters, I had it already. But at the same time, until we sort of worked out the direction and decided where we were going with it and got that confidence, it was a whole nother story. And I will say, and I don't want to, go too far into it or labor the point, but the point when unfortunately Taylor Hawkins tragically passed was at a very crucial point in the game. Very early in some regards, when it comes to sort of, getting the absolutely run with it on certain key things. And that was really a gut punch to, I think, to everyone. It was sad. It was tragic. And then as sort of we're picking up the pieces of all of that, it's like, oh, but we also need to keep working. Like, what do we do? Like, how do we proceed? And I just kept going. At that point, I'm like, you know what? I think we probably just better move, or just keep going. Let's just assume the best and move on. And thankfully, when the time finally came, and we sort of got back in, and after I think a lot of mourning by everyone, I think what happened was everyone said, you know what? And I think this came down directly from the band. They're like, let's make this a celebration. Let's make this something for all the kids, you know? And at that point, like, it's like, everything just sort of was like, boom, that's our, we're back to that, focus, that love, excitement that we had prior, but now it was sort of, it transformed a bit and in a good way, in my opinion, but at the same time, that's not what you want to have happen. I mean, obviously, like, it's rough. It was difficult for a lot of people on the team as well. And I mean, all of us are fans. I don't know that anybody on that team was not a fan. And if they say they're not, you can punch them in the gut.
Okay.
I don't know. I just figured that'd be funny, but and you got to get it on. You got to get video of it. I want to see it.
Yes.
I'll take full responsibility for the damage. Anyway, so yeah, it was different. It was different, but I think everyone involved, the love shows. Like I said before, like, when a game hits on all cylinders, it really does show.
Yeah.
And I think I've been fortunate. I try to create that from my side of it whenever I'm on a team, and obviously that's where my joke of filling my punch card comes in with working with Brian Eddy and stuff. So that was interesting because I had never worked with Brian before, and Brian's got a completely different style. Every designer has a different style, and so it was really coming off of that one with Jack and jumping back in with Brian. He made it a lot easier to sort of pick up from where I was and go. But I do feel like because of the rush, I felt like a little like I was sort of at a distance at times, with Venom, because obviously I'm off, finishing up Foo and whatever. I don't know. Maybe that's just mentally in my head, or maybe they looked at me like a traitor. No, I'm kidding.
You're in Camp Eddie now.
Yeah. But
So it was obviously a different experience going in with Eddie and whatnot. The first question that comes to my mind, I know you had nothing to do with this, but we're getting so many questions of the doppelganger is what some people are naming him because he's got such a big booty. Was that your decision? Did you
no, it
did you
was
coax the sculptor into putting a big butt? Because his butt crack goes
no.
all the way to the back of his neck. Like,
No, so I'm all for butts. They serve. Listen, they're just they're just trying to help people
yeah,
survive and get rid of waste. But but I said it 3 times. But 4 times. Uh, that actually was not on me. So I did turnarounds. I did designs. I did give him a butt. But I didn't sculpt. I didn't pose the sculpt. I don't know who was involved in that. I like it because I look at it as a nod to Slimer, because Slimer's butt. But whatever.
yes, very true. You're the connection though too.
Or
Ghostbusters and
Dwight.
now
It
yeah,
could be Dwight.
Dwight.
Maybe that's
True.
Dwight's doing. Actually, I'm gonna have to ask him that now.
He likes big
That's
butts and
what.
he cannot lie.
That is one thing I will say. Whenever you're on a team with Dwight, you want to talk about excitement. Dwight knows how to be excited. And like every meeting, like when we're coming up with ideas very early on and all the teams in there, it like Dwight knows how to make things exciting. and yeah, I always have fun working with him. Him and I have this weird shorthand for occasionally misinterpreting one another, which is fun. But it all works out. He wouldn't deny that.
So you talked about you came back to Venom, and one of the first things you jumped into was the play field. Was this kind of a harder play field? Because when I look at it, there is a ton of LEDs in this game.
Yeah, it was difficult in some regard. In particular, the anchor point had to be a way to use sort of those inserts that sort of surround and encapsulate rewards, right?
Yeah.
And when I got in, because I was on Foo for so long, a lot of the light boards had been done and a lot of the layout of those inserts were there, and I'm like, oh, I could make it so much cooler if we could do this and this. And so I fought a little bit. I mean, I don't fight, by the way, but I kind of push to get a few of those changed, and thankfully they were able to. And so and it was minor stuff. Again, when a designer lays something out, I don't like to step on their vision, but I do know where there are certain things that you could sort of polish just a hair, and it would make for sort of a better visual layout, artistically speaking and stuff like that. And most, every designer I've ever worked with has no problem with that. And so anyway, so once I got into it, that was my first problem. Is I go, this is a big area down here where I've got to actually communicate information. They also, each of those, sort of ladders of completion that sort of help you encapsulate that, each of those also had to be communicating that they were, from a different path and a different character path. And so thankfully that's where the RGBs do help a little bit, because as much as I can give a visual indication subtly or not so subtly, the ability for Dwight to control those light colors and everything else helps tremendously. But yeah, so that was my big problem. The other thing was, in the back of my head, this is a Venom game, and while Dwight is super, like, he might be a much bigger comic book nerd than I am. And so, like, he was like, from the get-go, we're gonna have all the, like, a bunch of different hosts, this, and I'm going, like, but people will, if they hear Venom, they're gonna want Eddie Brock, type of thing. So I knew that trying to balance that out and make sure that people are like, still, this is a Venom, this is Eddie.
Yeah.
That's where, getting him nice and large at the bottom between the flippers was kind of like a no-brainer. Like, that's kind of a decision where I'm like, I don't know where else I could have gotten away with that, especially when, because the game has a lot of web slinging and combos and things like that. A lot of those shot paths up top represented locations, not characters. Like, in a lot of games, it'll be a character. In this case, it was locations. And, trying to crack the code of how to balance all these things and make it, overall still a visual, interesting, a way to break up space in areas, but still communicate information. It's always a challenge. And I try to be very analytical and think it out and start where, in areas that I understand and I don't know. And a lot of that was, honestly, I think all comes back to working on Ghostbusters with Greg. I'd ask Greg, I'm like, okay, I said, so when I worked with J-Pop there, I said, the one thing was, when it came to playfields, he'd always make sure that I just had absolutely no way of knowing where I was going, because he would constantly change everything. And he goes, okay, he's like, yeah, your J-Pop playfields are terrible. I go, oh, thanks. That makes me feel good. Why'd you hire me?
Yeah.
And but he actually gave me a lot of really great advice early on, and it really was, the simplicity, and there's more to it, but the simplicity of searching for the anchors that you understand, fleshing those out, looking what's left, and then starting to prioritize, and so it's a very analytical approach. And it served me well, and I chalk it up to Greg's influence on me. So,
Well, and it's done great, because I don't see any of your art packages and go, those are terrible. They all, like I said, I feel like they all set a higher standard for what we're starting to see in artwork in pinball in general. So you said you're a big comic book nerd. Did you have to do much research for Venom, or did you already know Venom? Did you know
well,
the
no,
big
I
bad
did.
guy?
I grew up. I grew up before Todd McFarlane started. I was reading before Todd McFarlane started his run on Amazing Spider-Man. I read all through that run. That was me, like, literally getting comic books, begging my parents for a couple bucks so I could, get those. And so I read those in real time. I read, the original Venom when they did the Venom miniseries. Mark Bagley did the
Yeah.
art, stuff like that. I read all that stuff. I haven't kept up as succinctly as Dwight has. So I still read comics, but I don't have the time. So I have such a backlog. I'm not joking when I say this. I may have years of backlog of comics I actually have and have not gotten through. Now, some of the stuff that this is sort of pulled from, I had read, which is good.
Yeah.
Not all of it. So I did actually go back through and sort of catch up on a few aspects. King in Black, some of that stuff I had not finished. I had, I had the books, but I didn't necessarily finish all of it. And so it was kind of weird for me to actually go in and like have an understanding, but then a few holes, and I'm going, oh, wait a minute, what? But I got myself up to speed pretty quick, and obviously, it's one of those things where at the end of the day, uh, I hope people do understand that anyone who worked on this project absolutely loves all the characters. You don't at Stern. It's really nice that they don't force people on things and go, well, your job is this, and here's a project, you have to do this. Like, they really do cultivate the creativity,
Yeah.
which is fantastic, and it's amazing in that regard, and that's part of the reason why I have continued to work with them as long as I have.
Yeah. Well, and we do want to talk about that, but we'll tease it just a little bit
Yeah,
longer. One of the questions I also had too was, like you did with Avengers, you had to do the same back classes for the premium and the Elion Venom. Was that just a time constraint, or was that something else?
it was absolutely a time constraint, and that was one. I don't know if you know this or not, but on Avengers, it was actually approved with just one backlash,
Oh, really?
and I got done, and I said, "Listen, I think I had, like, I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks or something," and I said, "Listen, I think there's still aftermarket stuff to do, but I'm like, listen, just let me try to come up with something else." And again, both of those backlashes on Avengers, it's not like I tried to create the Sistine Chapel. Like, I knew my limitations to a point, but at the same time, I had to come up with something else. I said, I'm like, my goal from day one, and this goes back to, even working with J-pop, was, I look at like this world, and back then prices weren't, even what they are now. And I go,
Yeah.
these are high end pieces of art to me. They always have been. And I, as a kid, I loved the artistry of it. I looked at these, machines, and was just like, this is just so, it's such an incredible thing to be able to do, that when I got involved, I said, I want to show that you can do more with it if I can. You know, meandering. I'm not. I shouldn't probably beat a dead horse, but meandering, and before I worked with Stern, was a different beast. When I started working with Stern, it was okay. We've got absolute finite schedules, and by the way, they aren't conducive to be able to do this type of thing, because again, this is a business where you have time constraints, and so I really honed in and developed my approach and sort of my way of being able to hit the marks I can, and one of those ways is never taking a day off. So there's that. Anyway, that's not a good one, by the way. I'm learning as I get older. That's not a good one.
Yeah. Well, one of your things that you first pointed out to me when Foo Fighters come out was Gary was under the flipper as a little alien that said "ship it." Is there any other Easter eggs you may have put into Venom or to Foo Fighters that you're? Yeah.
I actually don't set out to do Easter eggs, because I feel like unless it serves a purpose, and in the case of Gary, or Garlian, as I like to call him,
Okay.
in that case, I was literally just trying to make a joke to make Greg laugh, and then Jack, and then Tanya, and then everyone else, and then it just sort of became one of those things where I'm like, okay, it'll stick in there. So, are there? I mean, there always are. I don't know that many are as quite as overt as that in that regard,
Gotcha.
but yeah, again, time constraints. You focus on what you can. I don't. I mean, I put a lot of stuff into these. Again, I try to have intent. Sometimes the intent is funny. I prefer funny because at the end of the day, I would like people to just look at these things and without even playing them, just be happy, just feel happiness, smile and be like, this is cool. So that's a starting point. So yeah, when I can get something in there, I like to. I remember on Godzilla actually just getting Manila on the playfield. That wasn't even in the cards, I don't think, at the time. And
Uh-huh.
I kept talking with Keith, and I'm like, oh, we got to get this guy in there. Like, like, and I can't remember. I don't think he was against it. It was just that there wasn't, like, he just wasn't part of it at that time. But
Yeah.
man, did he become part of it?
Oh yeah. With the whole
He
ball drain sequence
oh
and
my
everything.
goodness. Yeah, Keith. Keith, I got to give him credit. Like, and I watch all Godzilla, and I was a Godzilla fan, and I've watched him over the years many times. But he had to scour through so much over and over again, and he came up with so many good clips throughout that game, and a lot of stuff that's not didn't even make it in the game and stuff like that. I got to give him credit. He pours himself into that. I mean, for my what I do, I pour myself into it, but he has to do so much more, in my opinion. And not that all designers don't do that. I'm not trying to, but in that case, that was a big undertaking for that game, in my opinion. Being able to really nail the vibe and pull the right clips and just sort of get that tone right. I think that's why people, that like that game. A lot of it is the personality based on sort of how he curated that stuff.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. So, well, we should stop teasing everyone. I guess, typically we don't ask you, are you doing another game for Stern because you're contracted out? But an announcement just came out today. Why don't you tell us what was that announcement?
Oh, well, so apparently, I just found out, I guess I'm a Stern employee now. I didn't,
You just found out. You're just like,
no one
oh,
told me. No, that's not true. That's not true. It's been in the works for a little while. I'd actually been asked, here and there. I think I always told everyone like George and Greg, I'm like, you guys couldn't get the same work out of me if I worked, if I was an employee, which
you
is
were just
kind of
playing hard to
true.
get. That's what you were trying to do, right?
Well, no, I wasn't actually. I was being dead serious because I liked the freedom to be able to walk away.
Yeah.
I liked being able to pick and choose other projects. But what happened was over time, I started to actually like these projects better than other projects. And I started turning away other projects to work on more projects like this. And it had nothing to do with you know money or time or anything like that. It had everything to do with the people and the projects. Like, I have made a lot of really good friends at Stern over the years, and I have so much respect for everyone that I've worked with. At one point, it kind of hit me, and I go, well, I'd be kind of stupid not to take an opportunity to work with these people. But then the real kicker came when somebody said the word paid vacation. Anyway,
That's when you realize you're like, yeah, I work myself way too hard to be nice to have a paid vacation.
yeah, and then somebody said, then they said benefits, and I go, what? Anyway,
Those still exist?
no, listen, the person to thank at the end of the day, and there's really two that I sort of put in tandem. Actually, there's a lot of them, but directly, it's Greg for basically giving me enough rope to prove that I won't hang myself over these projects over the years, and giving me these opportunities, you know regardless of what a licensor says. Art directors can decide, if that's going to work or not. And he always had faith in me, and he's always been super supportive, and he's always looked out for me. And along with that goes George Gomez. Same thing. Both of those guys have actually made me at times feel almost like I'm good at what I do, which I question. But yeah, but then there's a lot of other people. I mean, obviously Jody Dankberg has gotten like the greatest licenses,
You
and a
can't
lot of
argue
them.
with that. Yeah,
Yeah,
they're top
and
notch.
yeah, and he continues to. I mean, he's been he's a good friend of mine, and he's always like there's times where he'll be like, hey, I'm thinking about this or this. Any of those interest you? Or whatever, just like off the cuff, like occasionally, and I'm always like, it's one of those things where it's like, first off, I have to say this: I'm not the guy for everything. So don't worry, people who don't like me. I won't do your favorite game. For instance, I would not do Back to the Future, and it's not that I don't love that era and those movies. I'm just totally against doing any game based on a movie that involves 2/3 of the runtime with incest jokes. Anyway, no, that's not. I'm sorry, that's not true. And that's not entirely true. No, I'm just not the right guy for it because I know a better guy for it, and I know someone that would be better at it. And so whatever. But again, I don't know if that game ever gets made. I don't know if it does. If it's Stern, I've heard all kinds of wonderful rumors.
Oh,
Uh,
there's
it,
those are plenty in this hobby or in
oh,
this industry.
jeez. Yeah. By the way, when I make that joke, guys, Stern does not have Back to the Future. I can tell you. Trust me. Trust me on that one. But anyway, I
Of
could
course.
make other
Now
jokes.
you're gonna see yourself on Nap Arcade in a couple days, and it's gonna be like
I hope
Zombie Yeti
so.
teases Back to the Future. It must be
I hope so.
true.
Speaking of which, I saw that Canada guy posted something about Keith Elwin having 2 games next year. And I just want to say, all I've got to say to that is only 2, Chris. Anyway,
Ooh.
oh no, that's for Nap Arcade.
Oh, okay.
Uh, I'm just trying to cause trouble. No. Believe me, I'm not a talker. But no, at the end of the day, yeah, I'm really excited, and I'm honored to be a part of the legacy at Stern. I mean, what Gary's built and maintained over the years is, not a lot of people will get to say they worked at Stern, and
Yeah.
it's a cool thing. I'm not one that I don't really care about labels. I don't really care too much about they asked me like, what do you want to be called? Like, what's your position or something? Somebody asked me that, and I said, I don't know, employee. Like, I don't care. Like that, like I don't need a label. Like that doesn't prove. Hopefully, my work speaks for itself, and no matter what I do, people will just go, oh yeah, he's the guy who did that art. They don't go, oh, he's the junior art. I don't know what the hell I don't even know
You,
what my actually I don't even know what I'm actually called, but that's okay. It doesn't matter. But yeah, no, I'm very thankful, very excited, and hopefully I will continue to keep up the level of quality, and hopefully wherever I can, I'm going to help pass along things I've learned to other artists at Stern, and hopefully help them make their lives easier too if I can.
definitely.
I
On
don't
your
know that
business
I'll be able
card,
to, by the way, but
I know that like with Jack Danger, his thing is meme master or something like that. You should just be the man who makes the chimichangas. That's what
that's
you do
actually
on
not.
your business card.
Yeah, that's not bad actually. That's not bad. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. I actually would. I would be fine with any title that I'd be fine with just about anything really. President. No, anyway, I kid. But yeah, no, yeah, that I think that's legit now. And it's been a long time coming. And for years, I said you don't want to hire me. And then over time, I just really fell in love with everything. So I kind of, yeah, as long as people will continue to buy stuff and they don't hate me, hopefully I'll continue to get to do it.
Sounds good. Well, I've taken up plenty of your time, and I know you said you've been up since like 4 o'clock this morning. So I
Yeah,
think it's
I've got weird like I grew up my parents or my dad worked construction and I would go out with him especially in the summers and on weekends, and so I tend to wake up early, usually not 4 a.m. but
yeah.
but when I do wake up early and I go, oh, I'm only going to maybe get another hour of sleep, I try to just get moving, because if I don't, I'm just going to feel like just drained the rest of the day, and then my brain doesn't work well. I mean, you could argue it doesn't anyway, so there's that. But listen, before we go, so
Okay.
I have to ask, because last
Yes.
time it's been a long time since we talked.
Yeah.
Any good video games you've played in the past year? What's your
You
favorite?
My favorite right now, well, Legend of Zelda Tears of the
Yeah,
Kingdom is
yeah,
amazing.
it is.
And the Ninja Turtles, that new one, that
Yeah,
Shredder's Revenge, if you haven't
yeah.
tried that one, oh man, that one is amazing as well.
They actually, that company approached me about doing the key art for it,
Oh, really?
but I was working on Pinball and I couldn't do it. But then they came back and they had me do like a limited edition artwork for the soundtrack, the
Yeah.
actual physical record soundtrack.
I actually have that. I got one of those discs, and the
Oh,
artwork
nice!
looks amazing. I love it.
Oh,
So
nice, nice,
I
nice.
I'm a Ninja Turtles fan too. So I was pretty stoked when you did the Ninja Turtles artwork. So
Oh no, I was those guys, like when they reached out and we had Zoom calls and stuff like that. And I'm like, oh, there's like I can't. There's no way I'm gonna have time, and I felt really bad. And I legitimately, like, I felt bad. I'm like, there's no way, because the project I was working on at the time for Stern, I'm like, I can't cut corners. I'm like, and I would not be able to do less than what I think needed to be done. And so, like, it was quite a conundrum, but it was kind of an eye opening experience too for me, because I'm like, oh, this is interesting, because I'm choosing Stern over this,
yeah,
which is kind of said something to me, right? Like,
yeah,
it showed where, number one, my loyalties were, but also, why was I doing that? And so that sort of started some thought processes. But uh, you're leaving out one of the best games I've played this year.
okay. What is it?
Resident Evil 4 remake. Believe it or not,
Oh
I don't
my
know
goodness.
why. I'm not even. I don't know. I like Resident Evil games.
Yeah,
They're not the greatest, but the remake, those remakes that Capcom has been doing, are good. I mean, three is. I never liked the original three, so the three remake was but
yeah.
but two and four have been fantastic.
Well, and you had actually recommended Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy to me, and that game was
Yeah.
amazing too. They
Was it?
did.
Isn't that surprising? I never would have thought, and it's not that I thought it wouldn't be good, but I kind of assume when it comes to video game, because when it comes to video games and comic books, there's been a decline over the years in quality on
Yeah.
on some of those things, and you go, well, I don't know, but I'm thinking of that Avengers game that came out in particular.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it looked great, but it just wasn't a lot of fun. But yeah, no, that one was fun. Uh, I was an early adopter of the Steam Deck. Uh,
Same here.
yeah, big fan. I actually pulled the trigger on the Asus Ally, the ROG Ally.
Nice.
If you like the Steam Deck and you can handle yourself in Windows, you're gonna like it more than the Steam Deck.
Really?
Oh yeah,
Hmm.
performance wise, and the fact that you can actually play a lot of the PC games that you can't on the Steam Deck.
Yeah.
It's sort of a. I'm not saying I would. Actually, I'd probably wait for the Steam Deck too, if you are inclined, because the Steam Deck OS is so great. But anyway, so that's literally the only way I get to play anything anymore. So
Yeah.
like I think I played through uh, Hi-Fi Rush.
Okay.
I couldn't start Tears of the Kingdom until I was done with Venom, but I snuck in an hour or two in the late evenings here and there, and I got to get back to it actually, because whatever.
The game is such
And
a
then
masterpiece.
Street Fighter 6. Obviously, I'm a Street Fighter guy,
Nice.
so I
Yeah.
love that as well.
I can't
But
get into fighting games. I enjoy them, but I always get my butt
yeah,
handed to me. So it's like I can't button mash fast enough, I guess, or do all the combos.
I get it. No, I totally get it. The older I get, and I'm 20 plus 26, and the older I get, even playing like a Call of Duty or something like that, like my tactics are different. I used to
Yep.
be head on, run in there, take everybody out, one, boom, 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 and now I snipe. Anyway,
Yeah, I get you. I get
I'm an
you.
old man. I have to keep my distance, but no, I only asked because last time we talked, I know you were a big gamer as well, and
Yep.
obviously there's been some good stuff. Hopefully there'll be even better stuff. I'm looking forward to Alan Wake 2,
Yep.
and Starfield has me interested. I'm hoping that it turns out okay, and obviously Spider-Man 2 for PlayStation.
Yeah.
Those are the three games that I'm focused on for the rest of the year, in theory.
Well, I know one game that you
Uh,
talked about was Tony Hawk's Pro Skater when you came on
yeah,
last.
oh yeah, I love that.
Oh man, if we could get if you should put in a good word down there at Stern to get a Pro Skater pinball machine.
I've talked about it endlessly. Don't get me started. No, I've talked about it endlessly because I think it's so ripe for it.
Oh yeah.
And what's funny is, well, I don't want to say that because I don't want to pick favorites. I love all the designers there, but I can think of two designers because of two different reasons, by the way, that could do that game justice. I think,
Yeah.
but whatever, all of them could. Don't get me wrong, but I think two of them I know for a fact are totally into it.
Yes.
So there's that. But yeah, no, I think that would be great. I've said this before. We kind of live in a world now where it's media
Oh
overload,
yeah.
like where like you know literally we all carry around a personal device that's just media consumption. I mean, like, even though we're using it for communication, it's really media communication at the
Yeah.
same time. And so I go, oh man, like we've got the comic books are popular, which, by the way, when I was in high school and when I read comics, uh, people weren't going, "Oh, you're awesome because you read comics." They were saying the opposite. So the fact that, like, I remember going to I think it was like my 15 or 20-year high school reunion. Obviously, I don't remember that well, so I'm lying apparently. But no,
Yeah.
it was one of those. It was one of those. And there was this one person, and I'm not going to even give gender on it because I don't want them to hear this and get their feelings hurt. By the way, no one's going to hear this that I went to high school with. But I'm trying to be nice. But
Except for Patterson, right?
no, yeah, it was Jeff Patterson. No. And they were all talking about, like, the latest, like, Marvel movie at that time, and
Yeah.
and I'm like, oh, that's funny. I'm like, that's awesome that you like that, because I remember that, like, at one time, and I had like I think it was a Spider-Man shirt on or something, and you guys were like making fun of me and calling me a little kid and all this stuff like that, and they got angry, like, well, but that was then. And I'm like, well, I said, I'm not trying to make a big deal out of it. I'm just saying, like, isn't it funny how things have changed? And now, like, you guys are like, this is cool. I'm like, it was cool back then, too. Like, you would have loved it and probably enjoyed the movie more now had
Yeah.
you actually been a nerd. But whatever. So anyway, that's not where I was going with this.
Are-
It's just an anecdote. But no, and it's not a good one. There's no point to it. But I think the next place to farm because we got the comic books, we got television shows, we got movies, and how many classic movies are made in the last decade?
Oh yeah.
Not very many.
Yeah, not very
Like
many.
maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, who knows? We'll see. We'll find out in 20 years. But video games, that's where you go.
Yeah. Definitely.
I've said before, the one thing I would love to do is mine like Sega or something like that, right? Like do like a like you could. There's so many properties. There's got to. What's Sega doing? They don't do much anyway. Space Harrier, anything? No, I'd be down for anything. But yeah. So that's my whole thing. I'm like, I think eventually we'll get there. I mean, we're kind of getting there now, aren't we? Like, is there any? I'm trying to think. Are there any video game pinball machines at this time? Obviously, there's been Street Fighter, there's been Super Mario, stuff like that.
Roller Coaster Tycoon, if you really want to.
Oh, that's true. That's good. That's a good point.
Yeah.
That actually
that's what ruined it for us. Well, Big Buck Hunter as well.
That's a good point. Roller Coaster Tycoon. Who would have thought? What about isn't there that like one? There's like you drive a semi truck in the snow. What's that one called? That'd make a great pinball game.
You just make Goat Simulator the pinball game.
Actually, I'd be okay with that. Lots of air balls. Anyway.
Yeah.
I got to be honest. Have you played Goat Simulator 3, the latest one?
I haven't. Is it?
They actually made it a game now. Like before, it's nonsense. Now it's nonsense with purpose.
Yeah.
And I got to be honest. It's actually pretty enjoyable to meander around.
kind of like what's that, the Deer Simulator or whatever, but he can walk on two legs with a gun and he hunts people.
It's better. It's more refined than that in regards to what can be done. But you're right. You're in the same wheelhouse there. It's very similar. Visually, though, I don't know what I don't know what you could do with a game like that. But it's interesting. So. Anyway, okay, that's it. We'll have more video game conversations off camera so we don't annoy people.
Okay. Well, are you going to Expo this year?
Yes, I think it's
Perfect.
the only show. I think I take that back. I'm supposed to go to the Tilt amusement thing in a couple weeks here.
Okay,
What is that? Or what is it?
The Tilt Gate.
I can't think of what
the
it's
tailgate
called.
Party.
Tailgate party. Yeah. I think I'm going with Tanya and Jack.
Nice.
So the whole team of 3 of us will be there. Obviously there's many that won't be because the whole team would be all those people I talked about before that you have to get on your podcast, and we'll talk about that.
Sounds great.
Yeah. Other than that, no, I'm going to Expo. That's the only thing that's on the docket, and unless they tell me to go, I was supposed to go to Comic-Con, by the way, San Diego Comic-Con for the Venom thing, but I'm not a lot of fun. I'm not fun, and I don't like to travel.
You can't drink Gary under the table, huh?
I know I'm not fun like that at all. I wish I was and I wish that I have lots of issues, especially in planes. My last few flights were so traumatic that it's really hard for. So I'll do whatever I can to get out of flying whenever I can now. It's very unhealthy. You shouldn't be that way, but not a lot you can do. Anyway, and again, I'm just not fun because I look at it, if it would have been like, oh, you get to do a Comic-Con panel, like you're legit. Like that's what my friends would say, like who are artists. Yeah. And I would say, but I'd have to fly and I don't want to fly. So stupid. Anyway, well, that's a whole other podcast.
Well, we appreciate you coming on. If someone wants to get a hold of you, what's the best way to get a hold of you? If you even want someone bothering you. I know Keith's like, no.
Oh, well, so you can reach me via Keith Elwin. That seals it. No, I think I still have zombieyeti.com, and I've got a contact form on there or whatever, or you can just email, whatever. I think I've got a Stern email now, but it's not Zombie Yeti. It's Jeremy
Packer,
which is not as cool sounding. But that's okay. But that's okay.
It is funny though, like your name is so synonymous. Zombie Yeti is so synonymous that when you do say Jeremy Packard, people are like, "Who's that?"
Yeah,
You
I
mean
know.
zombie?
Like
Yeah.
it's not very cool, and people are like, "Who's that?" And then, as you can see, I got all my hair and beard trimmed to look like an adult.
Nice.
So I got to tell you this one. I swear, and you can stop recording because we'll bore people to death. But I got to tell you this one. So I went, and again, I'm not trying to hurt anyone's feelings here, who may have cut my hair, but I went to get a haircut, and it's a friend of the family who has a this business, and she's cut my hair a billion times. And I went, it's for some reason I don't know what was miscommunicated, but I walked out of there and I looked like Steve Perry from like 1985 or something. Like, and I go, what happened? Like, I don't understand what happened. And like, listen, I don't mind looking goofy because I am by default. But I just really, and I'm like, oh, I can't do this. And so the next day I went to a barber and I said, hey, make me look like I was, like I live in the now. And so he cut all my hair off. Anyway, it'll grow out. Don't worry, it'll grow out. But I will not show you photos either of what it looked like before, but it was not a good look for me.
Yeah. That's impressive. You took photos. It's one of those ones that you usually throw away and you pretend it never happened.
Oh no, I had to like show my wife before I got home. I'm like, oh, prepare yourself.
That's awesome. Anyway. Well, if you want to get a hold of us, we are loserkidpinballpodcast@gmail.com. We're on all the socials, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook. I guess it's not Twitter anymore. Sorry, X.
I don't understand that.
It's all at loserkidpinball. Check out our merch on silverballswag.com/loserkid. I'm wearing the George Fisher Don't Panic Flip shirt. It's very awesome. You should go get yourself one as well.
Nice.
But we thank you, Jeremy, for coming on, and it's always great to have you on. And I guess we'll see everyone in 2 weeks.